7 p.m. on the last Saturday of this month, and it's time for another very interesting conversation. Thank you so much for being here with us. I must start by thanking our sponsors and host, Odyssey, without whose consistent support over the last 5 years, Vaani and I would not have been able to bring you these very meaningful conversations in a couple of series. I see a lot of known people and a lot of new people. So I'm going to take a few minutes to introduce ourselves and tell you a little bit about why we do what we do. And then introduce the series itself, and then go on to the conversation with our guests this evening. So Vaani there and I, we are the happynesswalas. We believe our life's purpose is inspiring happiness. Both of us are going through a fascinating, life-changing experience. You can Google us, Happynesswalas, HAPPYNESSWALAS, and you'll find a lot of internet footprint on what we do and why we do it. But just to keep it very brief and yet give you an overview for this evening, let me define what we're going through. We're going through a crippling bankruptcy for 12 years now. It's a situation that defies our imagination, challenges us at a material level, and yet inspires us to go on every single morning, go back to work on it, to try to turn things around. So this phase has had many spells of worklessness and pennilessness over the last 12 years. As I speak, in 2019, we are experiencing one more of that spell for several months now. And so it can, in one sense, be very, very debilitating. Yet, this phase led us to ask ourselves some very significant questions. Why are we going through what we're going through? And what can we learn from this? And Vaani and I discovered that we could be non-worrying, we could be non-frustrated with our situation, and we could be non-suffering. We all know that worrying doesn't solve a problem, but it's not so easy to be non-worrying. You need to train your mind. And so we trained our mind to be non-worrying. It's when we pick up a worry that we make the worry powerful. If you don't pick it up, it's powerless. We trained our mind to do that. You try to fix things, solve a problem, and you come back unstuck every single time. You get frustrated. We taught ourselves the art of being non-frustrated despite our best efforts. So the simple question being asked is, will I get an outcome out of this effort or not? That's not the question we ask anymore. We ask ourselves, am I doing the best I can in the given situation? If we are doing it, we give ourselves a pat on the back and go back to sleep and wake up the next morning to do it all over again. So non-frustrated, we taught ourselves that. And the third quality that we taught ourselves is to be non-suffering. We stopped asking why me? இன்னைக்கு இந்த பிரச்சனையா? இதை சால்வ் பண்ணணுமா? தெரியுமா? வழி தெரியுமா? முயற்சி பண்ணலாமா? அப்படிதான் யோசிக்கிறோமே தவிர ஏன் இது வந்திருக்கு? ஏன் இது புதுசா வந்திருக்கு? ஏன்னா 12 years. There have been many flavors, many colors, many episodes which have had twists and turns and continue to baffle us. So we trained ourselves to be non-suffering. So when you are non-worrying, non-frustrated and non-suffering, you can only be happy. And that's what inspired us to do things that we can be useful at doing rather than just try to be successful at turning around our business alone. So it's when success is elusive, It's not that we are worthless. We discovered that we could actually be useful. And that became the raison d'etre, if I can call it for us, our life's purpose, our ikigai, and that's what we wake up to do every morning, inspire happiness. This morning, we woke up knowing that this is our conversation for today, and very interestingly, we were listening to our favorite R.D. Burman song from Masoom, 1983, Shekhar Kapoor's first movie. Gulzar's lyrics, oh my God, I can just, listen to them any number of times. And he says, "Tujhse naraz nahi zindagi, हैरान हूँ." I'm not angry with you, life. I'm surprised. I'm a bit surprised. जीने के लिए सोचा ही नहीं, दर्द संभालने होंगे. I never thought to live life I had to deal with pain. मुस्कुराए तो मुस्कुराने के कर्ज उतारने होंगे. To smile, I had to repay a debt. I never thought that's what the poet means. मुस्कुराऊं तो भी लगता है जैसे होठों पे कर्ज रखा है. Even then, if I try to smile, I do feel the burden of that debt on my lips. So powerful. The key operative phrase there, however, is जीने के लिए सोचा ही नहीं, दर्द संभालने होंगे. We all think life is a straight line, and that's the way we are conditioned to grow up. And then life deals us a curveball, a crisis, a situation that numbs us, that befuddles us. And that is when we realize that life is not what we thought it would be. What we have understood is that life is all about accepting new normals. And some of those new normals involve pain, because pain is an integral part of life. And the Buddha says it so beautifully. He says that pain is inevitable. Suffering is a human invention. So if you bring in the suffering by asking why me, pain by itself is inevitable. And when we learned that, we felt that we needed to share this with people, and that's where we came out with doing multiple things that we found ourselves good with doing. I wrote my book, Fall Like a Rose Petal, which came out in August 2014. The book led to many opportunities for us to deliver talks. Very soon, a conversation series was born, and then another one and another one. And over time, we retooled our business model where we run a workplace happiness firm called AV Initiatives, where we share and explore lessons on life, happiness, and leadership for managers. So, in all this meaning that has come into our life, we've learned one important thing, which is if you accept the life that has been given to you gracefully, and don't get keyed up with that line that Gulzar uses, that जीने के लिए सोचा ही नहीं, दर्द संभालने होंगे. So don't try to push away the pain, embrace it. If you accept it gracefully, embrace it, and make it a part of your life, and work with it, then you can be non-worrying, non-frustrated, and non-suffering. And that's what this series particularly is all about. It's about happiness, living fully with what is. The format we have today in this conversation, this is the 13th edition of this series. Over the last 5 years, we've done fewer of these conversations, but this year, 2019, we've done quite a lot of them. And in this series, the format is that Vaani will be joining me. Vaani and I will be in conversation with two guests. And our two guests are here. You know who they are, but I'm going to introduce them in a bit. And this format involves a conversation that will go on all the way till 8:29 p.m. So we will end on time, just as we've started on time. This format does not have an audience Q&A. Please stay back and engage with our guests at the end of the conversation. This is not a talk. This is not an autobiographical overview of anybody's life. It's a conversation. And we are exploring here what matters most and why, which is happiness. Our guests this evening are two wonderful friends, R.V. Rajan and K.S.Narendran. Naren, we knew of Naren only when MH 370 went missing. It was a difficult time for anybody who heard that news to reconcile with the fact that the plane had gone missing, just as a reader of newspapers, a watcher of television channels. And so we can well imagine what Naren and his daughter and their family would have been going through. A few months after the incident, my book launched in August 2014. And we had decided, Vaani and I, that we wanted to not have a typical ribbon cutting, wrapper tearing opening where we give a celebrity a copy of the book. So we wanted to give the book to someone who represented the spirit of resilience, something that we both had learned to cultivate and deploy. So we reached out to Naren. I wrote to him. He was kind enough to reply. And he said, I would have liked to join this event, but I'm traveling. Those dates don't work for me. And so we never had Naren receive the first copy of Fall Like a Rose Petal. But over the next year, we got to know him better. And he was also on my conversation in another series we do called The Uncommon Leader in May 2016. During the course of the conversation, I found Naren to be a very lucid, reflective, and you will find that today, a very candid conversationalist. There's something that he knows, he talks about it. There's something he feels, he talks about it. If there is not, he doesn't. So it was very easy to have the conversation with him, though we were talking about something very difficult. And thank you, Naren, for doing that with us. He subsequently wrote this amazing book. If you've not read it, please read it. Life After MH 370, Journeying Through a Void. It's available along with my book over there for sale. So please do read it. So Naren is in conversation with us today, and we are looking at his journey from there on. I mean, I've done a conversation with him in another series, but here Vaani and I are exploring how much more things have changed, and we are keen to understand how he has evolved and coped in this time. Rajan there, we know him for 25 years plus now, the grand old man of Indian advertising, if I can call you that, a rural marketing guru, but most importantly, a great champion of anything that Avis and Vaani do. No judgment, no bias, neither then nor now. Irrespective of the way our life has turned out, Rajan's love for us has been constant, and we're truly blessed with that, Rajan. Thank you so much. Rajan and the family had invited us to an event we remember at GRT Hotel, where there was some kind of a celebration that we were part of. Thank you for having us there. That was the time when we met Prabha. And this was before she fell sick. Oh gosh. Was it that event? But I thought then there are two events then. And two times that we met Prabha. We found Prabha to be a very simple, nice conversationalist. Did not know the background of Prabha being a writer at that time, and the depth of her writing abilities we did not know. At that time, Rajan's stoicism was more on the business side, and in life, one had not seen Rajan's ability to cope and move on. And after Prabha's passing, the way Rajan's inspired us with the way he's lived his life. On one side, he's out every day connecting with people, living a full life. On another side, he's doing things to make other people happy. And on the third side, he leads the Prabha Rajan Talent Foundation, celebrating the memory of his wife Prabha. And Vaani and I are keen to explore with Rajan today, how is he able to do all of that? And this conversation, therefore, with Rajan will be very interesting because he also talks about, very candidly, the way only Rajan can. In his book, he talks about it in parts, but we're keen to ask him some questions about how he was at one point in time and how he's evolved and changed now. So that's our two guests for this evening. May I now invite Vaani, Naren, and Rajan to join us here. I know it was getting a bit too cold, but now it's getting a bit too warm, at least for me. So, can we have the AC back on? If it gets cold, we can turn it off for a while. Okay, gentlemen, Rajan, did you turn on your mic?
Hello.
Yeah. Okay, your mic's on. Okay.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us. I hope both of you are comfortable in your chairs. All set? Okay.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Everyone audible at the back? Okay, fantastic. Okay, over to you, Mom. Get started.
Okay, good evening. I want to start today, and since we're going to be talking a lot about, life after having lost your spouses, let's first get to know the ladies. So I would like to ask both of you, and let me start with Naren. Can you tell us something about Chandrika? Describe her.
What happened now?
Whatever works.
All right. She's my wife. As I remember her, she was a wonderful, warm, caring, compassionate woman, full of life, tremendous zest for life, very action-focused, irrepressible in her own way, but very deeply compassionate. Had a great sense of concern for the underprivileged. Causes of various kinds really drew her. For instance, issues of gender, the environment, issues of injustice, fairness, equity, the whole gamut of things that engaged her, a good part of her life. She worked with the tribals in Dungarpur. She worked in out of Chennai, the fisheries sector. So she worked essentially in the area of saying how can the world be a better place. And I think that's the bottom line, which is fair, which is equitable, which is compassionate, which is gender sensitive. So, if I look at her, I think she was a person of many parts. As a human being, a fantastic human being, very fun-loving, full of life, as I said. And there was nothing that could ever pull her down because she was irrepressible as a person.
That's wonderful. I mean, I really wish I'd gotten to know her at the time. Fortunate that we didn't really get to know Chandrika. Rajan, can you tell us something about Prabha?
Well, Prabha became all that much later in life. I would like to go back in time almost 45 years earlier when I got married to her.
Can't hear you.
Can't hear?
Can't hear.
That's the best it can get up.
Can you hear me?
No?
I have a problem. Oh yeah.
No, I think it's try keeping it in that position.
Now a problem, I've got a tendency to use my hands. So it's like you go
Never mind, Rajan.
Okay. I think I'm loud enough. You can hear me.
Yeah, no.
Now it's better.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kumaraji.
Yeah. Now, it was an arranged marriage. I remember 1971. I was already 29, 30. My mother was very worried. Young man is not getting married. All kinds of rumors were floating about me and my mother. So I was in Delhi at that time. Very successful adman. Full of life, and I've already reached a certain position in life in underwriting agency. I was also very active round tabler, socially very active. So my mother she went to a temple in Bombay, Prabha Devi temple, the Siddhi Vinayak temple. Somebody told her if you visit that temple 21 weeks continuously, your son will get married. It so happened, after projecting 4 girls, my mother did find a jadagam which fitted him. Another problem was, if people knew that jadagam will match, people ask, government illaya, bank illaya, advertising, account executive, not interested. But fortunately, the Prabha Devi temple worked, and she got Prabhavati as her daughter-in-law within the next couple of months. Anyway, she was a graduate. I had like a typical male of those generations. I was sent to a GK wearing company, post picture, standing next to a stool. You look very handsome, very good looking. I was told she's a BSc graduate from SIT college. I said, fine. All the parameters fitted. I had made up my mind. I already rejected 3 girls. This girl I'm going to accept, whatever it is. When I went to see her in Mandavali, I was running 104 degrees temperature. I had come on an official visit, cooked up a visit so that I have the girl sing ceremony. Even before the ceremony was over, I said, yes, okay. So my Prima was with me, the old couple who were born in college. She was very furious. How can you say yes on the spot when the old people are here? You got to consult us. I said, I'm sorry, I'm 30 years old, I'm getting married, I know what I am doing. Please don't mind. And so I got married. But, being a Madras girl, I thought she'll be quite social, she can speak English. I was in for a big surprise. Very first party I took her to in Delhi, official party, I found that she was very poor in communicating in English. So somebody will ask her a question in English, she will translate that in Tamil, get an answer, translate in English. By the time she replies the first question, the guy would have asked her the third question. Standing next to her, I used to feel very embarrassed. What do? Typical those days, committed to. But she was a good housewife. So I found that she looked after my parents well, and quickly we had 3 children. Everything was going on beautifully. I thought as long as I look after them, I will avoid taking her to all kinds of social places where she's not very comfortable. As a round tabler, as an adman, as constantly partying, but she will only come for selective parties. Whatever it is, she was not the girl I dreamt of.
She was not.
She was not.
Okay, she was not. But I carried on like a typical husband would do, performing my duty.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
I think this is very interesting. So there are some qualities about her that are striking.
Exactly, yeah.
That she came from a background where she could not express herself in a language that you were more comfortable with. And you felt at that time that she was not the girl that you had dreamt. So
we're going to come back here. Do you have any comment to make here?
No, I'm good. Yeah.
You're good?
Yeah.
okay. So those are initial descriptions of their spouses, because a lot of this conversation is about the 2 of them, and so it was important that you get a picture of who we are talking about, and this story gets very interesting on either side. But let me go to Naren. Naren, I remember reading when reading MH Life After MH 370. One particular paragraph that struck me very much, not a paragraph, it's an entire chapter perhaps, that when the plane goes missing and the first information reaches Naren, that day, among his many reactions, one that stands out very prominently is that long walk that you take around your building block in Guindy. And I tried to go into being Naren. What would have been going on in your mind at that time? I mean, the disappearance had been reported, nothing else. And it had been several hours since it had been reported. So what was the man going through? This was the question I had. And then every year I've been very diligently, if I can say, been reading up all your posts, particularly the transcripts of your speeches or your talks at the annual memorial meetings at KL every 8th of March that you have been going through. And this year, I noticed you have said that the cloud of sorrow and despair has become less intense. That's what you told the audience. So my question is, in these 5 years, what are your reflections on, life, on acceptance, on moving on? What are your reflections on this?
You're asking three solid kind of questions here. Okay. See,
Let me add it like time, life, acceptance, moving on. The role of time.
sure. See, the initial years, you can look at it like this, the first 2-3 years, the essential preoccupation was to somehow find out where the plane is, what happened, why it happened, and if there was some, what shall we say, criminal act, who and what might be the reasons behind it. So essentially the whole quest in the first 3 to 4 years was to really try and understand where can you find this plane? How can this ever happen? And while fairly early on, I had come to the conclusion that perhaps I'm never likely to see my wife again, because all that I had seen, all that I had read, and all the TV shows and air crash investigations I had read seemed to suggest that if it wasn't a hijack, if it wasn't a crash on land, quite likely it's in the sea. And since no crash was reported on land, it had to be in the sea. And since no demand was raised, it had to perhaps have gone down in the sea. And so fairly early on, I think I was mentally aware that there's going to be only one likely conclusion as far as the passengers are concerned. But it didn't really still settle the question about why things turned out the way they turned out. And I think the mind is a stupid monkey. It never settles till you have answers. And I think it just kept me and a whole lot of other families constantly out seeking answers to questions from the government, from the investigative agency, and so on. And in some ways, this preoccupation also came in the way of putting our minds and hearts and our energies into perhaps other normal, standard routines of daily existence. In some ways, it took away attention, it took away our energies, and it impaired our capacities, I think, to act in a way that we were used to prior to this event. That's one part of this. The other part of this is that it was a traumatic event, and I think trauma strikes, or the realization of trauma took a while. Took, I think, a few months to actually sink in. I think the first few months and I think the couple of years was largely around trying to be strong, trying to channel one's anger in a certain way, trying to find answers, push, consolidate, build a certain circle of solidarity, and so on. So, but I realized at some stage that, trying to be strong was actually counterproductive, because the reality of the body was that it had taken a beating. And so one ended up actually suffering quite a bit. And it's the story of every family that I was in touch with. I don't know if I'm taking longer, but...
No, you're doing fine, you're doing fine.
So the difficulty in the initial years, therefore, was one, that do you really mourn, do you really grieve without knowing actually what the truth is, what the reality is? You are expected to assume or operate from presumption that somebody is not going to be around anymore. And there was no certainty around it and no information. The struggle for information, the struggle for support, the struggle to keep the search alive was another saga in itself. So net-net, the initial efforts were around saying, how can we hold ourselves together? How can we look beyond our immediate sense of grief, loss, and trauma, and try and pursue this whole question of where should we try and locate the plane, who should do it, how, and what, and to ask and find answers, I guess, for what might have really happened. But I think with passage of time, and also I think it became apparent after a while that there are going to be no easy answers. Perhaps there will be no answer. Right? And so at some stage I had come to a reconciliation with the proposition that there are going to be no answers. Yeah. So once that became very clear, then I started to reappraise the whole efforts that we were trying to put in collectively, in this whole search for the aircraft. We continue to do so. But you can't search till you know where to search. And it seemed like a very strange situation that we were in, that we didn't seem to have a clear place of a search area, a clear definition of a search area, in spite of searching 120,000 square kilometers, etc., etc. So at some stage we simply, I think, had reached a point that this is going to be a very long drawn affair. Maybe it will get suspended, maybe even get abandoned, though we would never really accept that proposition from the government at any stage. But that's the reality on the ground, that search has stopped. So then I was telling myself that it's futile to continue to stay preoccupied with something that is coming in the way of looking ahead, coming in the way of reconstructing a life, coming in the way of actually accepting the fact of loss and dealing with it in a way that is constructive. Because there was a fair amount of wasting away that I experienced. And there's no clarity about how to live my life, which I had not given enough thought to. So if you ask me, as the years have gone by, I have come to accept that life must go on. There's still, I don't know how many years ahead I have. And, and life is a gift. And if I have to be faithful to that gift, I cannot get stuck in the past. I cannot get stuck on a question for which actually there is no answer right now. And I don't have the wherewithal to actually pursue it.
That's beautiful. That's a beautiful note on which you brought the entire experience alive. Thank you so much. This is lived experience, my friends, and talking about a 5-year journey in less than 5 minutes of more than 50 billion emotions that you've been through. I just want to help people understand, because not everyone is going to have a situation of a plane going missing, thankfully. Not everyone can get into his shoes and his mind and his skin and his soul and feel that anguish. But in the larger context of life, we all, in our different contexts, ask questions. Why? Why did it happen? What is happening to the perpetrator? Who is doing this? And how can I fix it? And how can I fix that person? And how can I solve a problem? And when you are unable to do it and you don't get the answers, you are struck by grief. Now, grief is an important emotion. You must allow grief to permeate your every being. So if you must cry, cry. If you must write, write. If you must talk about it, talk. If you just want to be silent and grieve, grieve. But grieve you must. However, remember that you're responsible for what you're doing. So grief over a period of time becomes a burden. How long can you hold a glass of water with your arm stretched? So you have to put the glass of water down if you want the pain to go away. That is the way you deal with grief. And it's only when you do what he said, what am I doing? Asking a question for which we don't have an answer right now. And I don't have the means to go after that answer right now. So grief drives acceptance. And in a way, acceptance helps you deal with grief. It's a beautiful process. And that helps you move on. So that's the way we need to internalize what he's saying. Don't get stuck with the questions that are debilitating you. Move on, knowing that you have to work on them, but you don't have immediate answers. And many things in life do not have answers. Right from when we think science has answers to a plane going missing, no, as we know. And so how can you even have answers to how people behave with you? You can't. Many times we get stuck with those questions. And that's a lot of waste of time.
You know, it's strange sometimes when you think about life and you ask questions as to why things are happening and you wonder why you don't have answers for them. I only understood one thing, that when things are happening, we may not understand why they are happening, but we are being put through them for a reason. And we may not know for a long time what that reason is, but eventually it does come in front of us, and we'll explore that. But Naren, you were going through so many emotions yourself. I mean, it's cathartic. No one can comprehend the kind of catharsis that you've gone through, because your personal life was tumultuous. And on top of this, you were dealing with a new reality of having to be a single parent now, all of a sudden, and helping your daughter Meghna cope with this reality. So, what happened? Can you share some insights into parenting and how you handled this whole situation?
Yes, sure. One of the difficulties that I encountered is that she's so much like me, and it's not and therefore not an easy prospect to deal with. All right. If you meet her, you will know.
Right.
So, I think she was a lot more grown up for her age than most other kids, and she had a certain stoic, phlegmatic way of even receiving the news and working with it that both surprised me and worried me to start with. And then she would not express quite often. And one of the things that we figured was for me to speak about how I'm feeling at different times, which in turn would create a context for her to talk about how she's feeling. And so we then created a space for ourselves where we could then talk about how we're feeling about what is happening around us, to us, and how are we experiencing the fact of, her mother's absence and my wife's absence and so on. So that was one way in which I think we tried to sort of be for each other. The other thing I think that we tried doing is to travel together, which gives us a little more time together. Third was something that I told her, and I don't see exercise that option very much, but I think it must have given us some reassurance. I told her that there is absolutely no subject, no question that is ever taboo. You can ask any question, anytime. You can say what you want, how you want, and what you feel. And I will be there, even if I'm in the middle of work, you're welcome to call. Yeah? And so between us, I want that we have absolutely a clarity that no subject is taboo. Yeah? And that her well-being and her sense of settlement within herself is of utmost importance. I'm hopeful, I presume, that that's something that may have helped her to also feel a lot more at ease to reach out if she felt like. The third thing I think which I found useful was to see that she gets back to her routines very quickly. And I think getting back into her daily college routines and making sure that she is not alone in college, in hostel, all by herself for any extended length of time, and therefore reaching out and being in touch was very useful. I've often been left with questions about, was there a better way to respond and be available to her? Was there a different way of expressing my fondness, my love, my utmost joy in her being in my life? I don't know. I've done what I could in the way that I knew best, which is often to not say very much, but simply just be available. And beyond that, I didn't know what else I could do. So these are something that I've attempted as a parent. I was very acutely conscious that I cannot be a substitute for her mother, and that I should not even try.
So beautiful, you say this because that's, I think, very important to make that realization that you cannot be a substitute for Chandrika. And I think being available for each other. And the other point that you said about expression, it's so important to express what you're feeling. And I don't know why in a social context, I mean, I find this a lot in, the society that we live in. People don't share what they're going through. And of late, I found that a lot of people, including Rajan, shares a lot of things on Facebook through telling people what they are feeling. I think it's very important because I think people don't share because they think they're being vulnerable. They're letting people know what is going on in their life. But Avis and I really realized that being vulnerable is a good thing. People come out and help you. You don't realize how much people are caring and can actually help unless you go and tell them that this is what I'm going through. So I think expression is very, very important. And as far as our own parenting experiences have gone, we've realized one thing, that parenting adult children is a very different thing. You can tell them what you think or what they should be doing or what you think, but how they respond to it and whether they take it. Sometimes they think that I don't want your experienced or evolved point of view, and so it's actually quite a challenge. And I think I agree with you that no one knows whether it's the right way to do it or not. You did the best, and yeah, thank you for sharing those insights.
The way you presented them as well.
Yeah, brilliant.
It was very concise and good takeaways there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me move to Rajan and his story. So Rajan's book, if you've not read it, please read it. Among his many books, Courage, My Companion, a lovely book, his first. This is a cover by R.K. Lakshman of Rajan. What a
treasure.
What a treasure, yes. So in Courage, My Companion, Rajan, you talk about being both an unavailable and also, by your own acknowledgement, not so great companion for Prabha. But things changed later on. So can you tell us the story of what changed and how?
Yeah. Actually, it was 1986 that I quit my job and started my own agency, Andhra Medicine. My parents were with me in the first 2-3 years of marriage, joint family. Went off to help my brother, who was in Bombay.
Konjam audio kudukreengalaa, Kumaresan?
Okay.
Use the mic.
They came back in 1986. In the meanwhile, my 2 daughters and a son, they were growing. The daughters were in their teens. And I could see Prabha was getting under pressure, and she was losing her cool very often. In fact, I was very busy as usual. I'm a multitasking guy, involved in so many organizations anytime. Advertising club, PRSI, roundtable, roti, this and that. I was busy. So, like any husband of those days, I used to think that by providing everything, wife must be happy. Good house, children, car, this, that. There's no reason why she should not be happy. I was in for a big, big shock. One day, I think it was 1988, April or so, I had gone for a meeting of roti and came back around 10:30, 11 to her house, and I was surprised to find Prabha was sleeping facing the other side, and I was found an envelope.
You need to get the mic closer.
Yeah, this is the problem. Envelope on the pillow, my side, and she was presumably sleeping. I picked up the envelope and I opened it up, and it's found it's a letter addressed to me. 10-page letter, pouring her heart out. In that letter, she was telling me, who am I, what am I, I married you, I produced 3 children, but today you've got your parents to look after you. You're mama's boy. You don't need me. Now your mother can take care of you. All kinds of things. I mean, I was shocked. I thought everything is fine. Suddenly you get this bolt from the blue. I was shaken up, but I didn't react. Anybody else could have reacted different way. Being an adman, my reaction was different. Being a person who can appreciate creativity, it was different. The letter gave me 3 messages. Most important was, she was missing an emotional connect with me. Every wife wants an emotional connect. It's not enough if you perform your duty. He needs that. Because joint family system, because predominance of my mother over me, probably I was not able to give her that connect. Second was, who am I, what am I? She was suffering from an identity crisis. She was lost in the family. The third, most important finding was, what a brilliant writer she was. What Tamil. It was a pouring from the heart, lava, as they say. I said something must be done. I always believed in facing every problem squarely, taken by bulls by the horns and say, as they say, that's what I do. And I also think out of box. I thought of an idea. I took that letter.
Wait a second. Let's just summarize this part for the audience.
Okay.
I'd like you to continue, but did you receive a wake-up call? Would that be a right?
Absolutely. It shook me completely.
And you stood there in the middle of the night, you stood there looking at that letter.
Yes.
And this is the way you processed
I read it 3 times.
all by yourself.
All by myself. But she didn't turn this at all. She allowed me to absorb.
You said presumably sleeping.
But I knew she knew that I was reading the letter.
And you read it 3 times.
3 times.
And you must have been jolted away.
Absolutely. No question about it.
I'm trying to re-emphasize the point, jolted awake, and the fact that he read the letter 3 times. I'm driving that emphasis with him because I do want to share that learning that I'm picking up here, that life serves all of us wake-up calls at different times. Now, what many of us do is we turn off the alarm and go back to sleep. We exercise that choice. Now, by turning off the alarm and going off to sleep, you cannot deny the fact that it is time to wake up. And what I'm picking up from Rajan's journey is, and he was beginning to say that when I stopped him, is that he seems to have gone to work on it.
Absolutely.
He seems to have gone to work on it.
Rajan, you want to tell us what you did with that letter?
I took the letter to the editor of, at that time, #1 ladies magazine, Mangal Ramesh. Because I knew her from advertising connection. I was an adman of dealing with the publication. I gave the letter to her. She said, why are you giving this letter? It's addressed to you.
Yeah.
I said, please read it. She read it. Her face became very serious. But why are you giving this to me? What do you want me to do? I immediately asked her, would you like to publish it? I said, what? Publish it? No way. How can I publish it? It's your personal letter. How can I publish it? I'm giving you permission. She thought about it and said, you are giving me permission is not enough. I want to talk to your wife. Can you bring her along? I want to meet her. I said, my God, it's a new problem. Anyway, let me try. I came back home. I gently broke the news to Prabha. She was in such a state that, having unburdened herself, I could see some relief in her. And I could also see that I had not reacted the way she was probably expecting me to react. I was not angry, I didn't shout at her or anything like that. She knew she had delivered the message to me. So she said, okay, if you want me to come, I'll come with you. So I took her along. The editor explained the whole thing to her. Your husband wants me to publish this, your letter. She thought about it, but I gave the letter to him. It's his property. What he does, I don't care. Wow. Suddenly she turned around and said, but one request. Please don't publish it in my name because my mother-in-law also reads that magazine. I'll be in trouble. So we agreed. Rajan Rajan R.V.Rajan. It came as a cover story, July issue of 1988, Mangal Mother. I did another thing. Afterward, She wanted an emotional connect. She wanted the attention from me. I planned a 6 weeks holiday to America, USA and Canada. The second real honeymoon in my life, to be honest with you. I only had a 1 day honeymoon after getting married because my boss lady gave me 1 week holiday. So that only 1 day I could get. So I said we'll go on holiday. My parents were happy to look after the teenage girls. My elder daughter is here. They were 14 and 13. My son was about 6 or 7. No, he was 8. Went on a holiday. I tell you, we enjoyed ourselves. I took her everywhere I went, even official meetings I took her. And we went and stayed with all the nephews and cousins and friends. Every 2 days we were literally going with the suitcase on. She was a very thin girl. In those 6 weeks she put on weight. So interestingly, on the way back, sitting in the aircraft, she wrote another essay, Chinnanjire Kiliye, writing all about her teenage daughter was sitting here, complaining about how difficult it is to bring her. That also got published in Mangal. So I told my wife, see, obviously, before that, the first article which appeared elicited almost 200 to 300 letters all over Tamil Nadu. Lot of women readers endorsing her feelings, this is what is happening to us, you have said it all, That touched her. She realized, she got something in her. And this also got published. Then I said, why don't you write short stories? She started writing short stories. Initially, 1 or 2 stories. I took it because I'm connected with media. Mangai, Viswanathan Reddy published in Mangai. Of course, the media Mangai Mother published 1 or 2. I came in Andhra Vidan, Idayam Pesigirdi, Kalai Magar, all that. Simultaneously, I made a join in English-speaking class along with my brother's wife. Both went through the class and then joined the ladies' club nearby. Innerwear Club of Madras South. If Roundtable India opened up a whole new world to me, Innerwear Club of Madras South opened up a whole new world for Prabha. You see, something fantastic. And I found she was enjoying this public life so much, stopped writing. So after 10 or 15 years, in 2010, I decided to publish a collection of her short, much against her wish. She said, I'm not a great writer, why are you trying to publish? No, do not do that. I said, no, I am publishing it. And we had a function to release the book, formal function with all her friends and relatives. Went off very well. The kind of response she got, she encouraged her to write again. He wrote 2 novellas and about 6-7 stories. By the time I was ready to think of another book, he contacted.
We'll come to that. But here's an important point.
I want to say something. This whole thing that you did about going to work on that letter. I mean, it was an outpouring. You were trying to make an emotional connect with the person that you've been married to. And I think, I tell a lot of young people this, that love is not really about, what another person does for you. It's about what you can do for the other person. The expression of love is actually what is, seen and felt by the other person, in this case, Prabha. And I think it's amazing that you actually went out, took her out, ensured that she, felt free to express herself. You probably really bonded as a couple more only after that letter. And how that letter actually became such a pivotal thing in your relationship with Prabha.
Definitely.
And the fact that she blossomed as a writer after that, thanks to your encouragement.
Her blossoming as a writer, in a very career point of view, if it is seen, it will be seen only as a career as a writer. But I think it's an expression of a man's love for the woman that he had great respect for the fact that she held up a mirror to him. And I think that shows your own ability to take feedback, and to go to work on it. So I think it's a magnificent story of how the entire equation changed. Had this not happened, I think we would have lost an opportunity to celebrate Prabha today. The world would have lost a writer, definitely. But one more important point we have to remember and pick up, because as the story moves on, and he was about to talk about it when I said, hold on, we'll talk about it the next sequence. ஆள் இருக்கும்போதே, when the person is there, do what you can for that person. There is great value in that. That is happiness. So it was an expression of how you felt for Prabha and her potential that you expressed right then and there, and you went
She
to work.
was your dream girl after all.
I was just going to say, don't take the word. You see, she, over the next 20 years, she evolved the dream girl that she was not. Because not only was she a good writer, she was a good singer. I still remember the Golden Jubilee of Naren. She was no more. She didn't attend that. She was described as the nightingale of Inner Kilometer South. I really broke down and cried. She, on whatever challenges that was given to her, I can't take all the credit. You can take the horse to the water. But every challenge that was posed to her, she rose up to the challenge. She did very well. She also became a multitasking girl. A girl would need to have a single friend in the first 15, 16 years of her life. She never introduced me to somebody saying, this is my college friend, school friend, never. But over a period of time, thanks to Innerweed and various organizations she was associated with, she became very, very social, lot of friends she made, and I was very proud of her. I was so proud when I heard that I was being referred to as Prabha's husband, not Prabha as Rajan's wife. I was so proud of her. I really fell in love with her in the last 20 years of my life.
Well, loving, that's what Osho says. When there is loving, when there is relating, you don't need a relationship to define it. That's what he says. Amazing. Naren, we'll come back to your story. Again, as somebody who loves reading what you write, and his Facebook notes, his book, there is a depth, there is a very unique quality to immerse yourself in. But on the other side, I find that a lot of your posts and what you talk about have a lot to do with the aviation sector as such, and particularly incidents of air crashes. So, have these last 5 years changed you as a person in that direction? Have you found your life's purpose? Is it now that of a crusader asking for those answers, not only about MH370, but raising a red flag where it must be for the aviation sector?
Okay. The issue of aviation safety, I think, is by a quirk of circumstances become quite important and quite dear to me. But I also see that it's at various levels. It's at national level, it's at an international level, all the way up to the ICAO. There are gaps and issues in how safety is mandated, how safety is adhered to, how safety is audited, and how safety is assured. Now, there are gaps all the way. Right here sitting in India, we have, I think, a pretty serious issue of a fairly serious proportion. Take every city. Now, so therefore I do make it my business to highlight some of the issues, some of the lacunae, the gaps, issues of serious concern that are arising from acts of omission or commission from airlines, governments, the international regulatory body, and so on. Is it my life's purpose? I am not sure. I don't know. They've been on the verge of looking at some framework, some institutional arrangement to work with issues of safety, at least in India. Internationally, I think we have an issue. There are many organizations that are there which look after families' interests. But one of the biggest struggles that we've had, and I want to just talk about that for a second. One of the biggest struggles we've had is the fact that as families, we have our voice in the whole matter was completely marginalized. And we've struggled with this over and over. And it's been a major source of both heartburn, anger, actually disbelief, because we have essentially a critical stakeholder in uncovering the truth. So So there is a lot that needs to be done, waiting to be done. I'm in touch with some people in India at least to see if we can create something which speaks for and on behalf of the flying public. There is a passenger association of India, I think it operates out of Chennai, whose face I've never seen.
Air passengers.
Air passengers. I don't even know what they do, which is a little sad, frankly.
But this engages you. This engages you.
It continues to hold my attention. But if you ask me if it's my life's purpose, I don't know at this point.
That's an interesting observation. It may not be the same for everyone. Each person may look at it differently. But one of the things, having studied people, their inspirations, what drives them over the last several years, what Vaani and I have found is that when you look beyond your economic engine, when you look beyond your earning a living cycle, you will often find that your purpose finds you. It will sneak into your life and engage you and hold you more, hold your attention, if I can borrow your phrase. So it can happen through a crisis. In our case, it happened through a crisis. It can happen through a conversation. It can happen through a spiritual inquiry. But it happens. And when you look beyond what is most obvious, which is your earning a living cycle. Now, why do we need to look beyond that cycle? Because money is a human invention. Life's aspiration for itself is what created you. And so you brought in the human invention and you live in a society thriving on that invention. So life does not have that parameter to weigh you. The moment you step out of that, it gives you work to do. And that's what is his purpose. He's being candid saying he doesn't know whether it's his purpose or not. But does it engage him? Does it move him? Does it drive him? It does.
Just to add to what you said, I see a role for myself. I think I've been a spokesperson, one of the spokespersons for the families, at least of MH 370 families for the last few years now. I continue to write when I can about things that I feel strongly about. And I do see a role for myself. Do I see myself as a champion? Do I see myself as some kind of a progenitor of an institution or an organization in this space? At this moment, no.
But Naren, I have a question for you about the unfairness of this whole thing. I mean, there are no answers. So do you at some point in time feel angry, angry with the system, angry with the airline, angry with life itself, that, sometimes, it does these things to you? I mean, how does it rankle you?
And have you dealt with this burden of closure?
You talk about three things.
Yeah.
So I'm going to talk about three. First is about anger.
Yeah.
I think anger has been a very significant fuel for me in the first initial 3 to 4 years. Because I think from the day the event happened, when the plane went missing, to start with, the overwhelming focus was on the Chinese families. There were 150 plus families who were impacted. So perhaps in the wisdom of the airline, they were the people to be engaged with. Sitting in India with just 3 families with 5 passengers, we didn't seem to figure in any scheme of things, either in terms of information, traveling across to KL, nothing, updates, nothing. So the irritation and the anger, I think, started there. And then I talked about how the families continue to get sidelined or ignored, and whose voices and whose needs were simply not getting addressed over and over. That was another major source of anger. The search process itself was, in fits and starts. And we never knew whether the government was really committed to actually finding the truth about what happened. And it required one hell of a lot of push and a constant refrain of, do something over and over for anything to move. I had to also talk about the fact that the debris that was found, for instance, on the coastlines of Africa, which remain uncollected for months. It is inexplicable.
Yeah.
And if you're really serious about finding the plane, finding passengers, finding the truth, you would go to sea and pick up. There are 10, 15 pieces of debris lying around for months, which just don't get collected and analyzed. These things somewhere leaves you quite shocked. And the fact remains that at the level of the ICAO, which is the apex body, they're toothless. At the level of intergovernmental engagement, no other government seems to be having any questions about it. Airlines seem to be quiet about it. Business as usual. A plane is missing, a modern aircraft which is the safest aircraft in the world. That's the claim. 239 passengers go missing.
It's strange, right? I mean, America knows where Osama bin Laden is staying, but they can't find a plane. I mean, it's strange.
So anger was the fuel.
So it is a huge fuel for 2-3 things. One, I think it helped in consolidating the families and channeling their energies to keep the pressure on the government. I think that was very important. And second, I think it helped, to somewhere not give up. It is also intricately tied to hope at that stage, right? That he don't give up. Yeah. But at the same time, anger also beyond a point. If you just hang on to it, it corrodes.
Yes, corrode.
It corrodes.
Yeah, I think channelizing the anger is also very important because anger to what end?
Correct. And physically it's debilitating. If we just hang on to it endlessly.
Yeah.
So we had to find a way in which this can be expressed.
Correct.
Part of it was through writing.
Yes.
Because I think that was a very valuable avenue for me. And much of it was in simply staying in touch with other families, mobilizing, strategizing, protesting, writing. Much like in the good old days, you would write letters to the editor whenever you were upset about something.
Yeah.
You would write to the government of Malaysia.
Yeah.
What else to do?
Yeah.
So, what about closure? I asked.
Okay, yeah. The way that I have interpreted this business of closure is very simply that it's a personal choice. I asked myself, if we find the plane, do I get any closure? Perhaps not. If we find bones and limbs and God knows what else, is it going to bring closure? Perhaps not. I don't know. So to my mind, it simply had to do with some days saying, I think we've struggled with this enough. We've got to look ahead. And closure, to my mind, was not about just intellectual and emotional acceptance, but it had to also be tied to a choice to move ahead. Being stuck in the same place or sitting in nostalgia about a glorious past was, I think, not sufficient. It had to do with dealing with the dreams that can never come true anymore. It had to do with the fact that the person that you had lived with for 25 odd years is not going to be in our midst anymore. And yet there are hundreds of other people. Life goes on.
So it's a personal choice.
I've dealt with it as a personal choice.
Interesting. So two explorations for me here. One, shall I take?
No, please.
One is the anger part of it. I think anger as a fuel is fantastic. And if you hold on to it too much, it burns you down. But without anger, there can be no progress. We are celebrating 150 years of a man who was very angry when he was thrown out of a train in Pietermaritzburg in South Africa. So I think anger helps, and that anger will definitely drive you. Closure, interesting thought there. My sentiments as well. My dad died 4 months ago, and I sat in a daze watching his body. All my life, I had always wanted to be close to him, but I was never quiet. And in the last decade, because of my personal borrowing from my family, I had not been able to repay the money, and I had hoped every day in my prayer that I would be able to do it before he passed away, because obviously he was growing older, and so was I. And then there was his body there, and I looked at him and I said, "I'm sorry." That's all I could say. Now, that night when I had a drink, I asked myself, is that closure? Or the week before that, we both had met him and my mother, and I remember telling my parents, both of them, that I couldn't get you a good name as a student, I couldn't get you a good name as a career professional. I borrowed money on top of it and have not been able to be a successful entrepreneur. But I think Vaani and I, we fought this situation of this bankruptcy very valiantly. Perhaps you will see some pride there. If possible, please soak in that pride. That's exactly what I told him. And there was complete silence in the room. So that night after his passing, when I sat and had a drink, I thought to myself, was that closure? So then I reconciled myself, Naren, and I said, the fact that he's gone, the chapter of my dad is closed. But can there be a completion to what I had set out to do with my dad? No. That would always be incomplete. So I think it's a very personal context, and in some cases you achieve it, in some cases you don't. In some cases it becomes irrelevant, I guess, as we grow older. 5 years later, I may not be looking at the entire experience of my father's passing the way I am looking at it today. So it's an ongoing process. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I'm keeping a watch on time, so after this, we'll move to the last segment.
Yeah.
So Rajan, important questions for you. One from me and then one from Vaani, which is, did it help you, Rajan, that you had a 7-month window with Prabha's diagnosis coming in and then her eventual passing happening? So did that window help you prepare better? Does preparation help you cope?
Certainly. In fact, I was telling you need to pass back. Oh, sorry.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yeah. Actually, in the month of April, we went on a holiday to Kashmir, a memorable holiday. Prabha would say it's a childhood dream come true. In fact, when she came back, she wrote an article on that. Kanavagal Revahina, Nenevagal Kanavahivitana. Beautiful line, I never thought the lady girl was enjoying herself in that trip. That myself and the other gentleman, we were two couples. We could not do all the adventurous trekking they were doing, both the ladies. When she came back, the following month she was beginning to complain about stomachache and things like that. And 4th of June, we discovered she has cancer. Advanced, 4th stage. My family doctor told me, terminal cancer. I was completely shaken up. In fact, first 1 week, every morning during my walk, those days I still not got into all my friends' group. I was walking alone. I'll break down and cry. Because I know back home I can't cry. I had to give her the confidence. But very interestingly, though she knew it was cancer, and I told her that it is not 4th stage, it is 3rd stage, you still have hope. I kept the hope alive. And she also believed. I used to tell her miracles can and do happen. She kept the hope alive right until last 2 months. So, yes, as I said, any challenge that I face in my life, I take it straight away, head on. So Prabha's taking care of her became a project for me. 24/7 duty. Next 7 months, I tell you, round the clock with all my other activities, I tried my best. And I could see, it's a horrible thing. So in his case, a different experience. In my case, you see a loved one, withering away day after day. Systematically, just coming down. Almost they're born in the eventually, tough. But I was reconciled to it. So when she died on the 5th of January 2013, I didn't cry. Because I was fully prepared, she's going to go. In fact, the last month looking at her pain, I prayed God, please don't make her suffer so much. Take her away. You did not listen to taking me away and leaving her behind. But please take her away now because I don't want her to suffer so much. So
So
that happened.
preparation
It was
helped in its own way.
definitely it helped. But yes, after all these ceremonies over, 13th day, when everybody had gone, I was sitting alone in that empty house. I broke down.
That day.
That's the day, the void that you talked about. Suddenly I felt there's a void in my life. Though mind you, unlike other people, I am blessed with my family members all living together. I got my brother, sister, we all live in the same compound. My son is with me, my daughter is very close by, second daughter is in Bangalore. And a whole lot of friends. It's not loneliness, but certain isolation. See, I decided not to merge my flat, my house, it's an independent home, ground floor and first floor. My son and daughter are living, son's family lives on the first floor, I live down. I did not merge because I could feel Prabha's presence in every room. I didn't want to disturb them. Besides, I thought that my son have his space, I will have my space. I'm also fond of cooking. So I thought I'll have my kitchen, my daughter can have her kitchen. So
That's how you picked up your thread.
That's why I
Rajan,
picked up
can
my
you
thing.
quickly, say something about the Prabha Rajan Talent Foundation?
Yeah.
What was the
What
how
was
did
the
it
seed for
Okay,
it?
then you see, to cope up with this, when time came to do something about it, I thought again, thinking of it, I will, instead of mourning her death, celebrate her memory. And
Can you say that again?
instead of mourning Prabha's death, I will celebrate her memory. That was the concept. And I started Prabha Rajan Talent Foundation as an idea. In fact, I want to register, but my family did not agree. They said the NGO trust and all very complicated thing, don't put us into trouble. So it's a unregistered trust with no bank account because I don't accept any donations from anybody. Entirely, whatever I spend goes out of my pocket. This Prabha Rajan Talent Foundation, through that I am trying to encourage women, talented women, to come into limelight. And many of them from my generation or little earlier generation, where a lot of women have suppressed their feelings, for sake of the family. They don't follow their passion, they don't come out with their creativity. I try to tell them. In fact, the latest example I must tell you. I went to see a friend of mine, 82-year-old Rotarian. He is sick, he is like this. And his wife told me, my mother, who is 92-year-old, start writing short stories in Tamil. But she sent it to some publications. No publications accepted. Can you help? I said, send it to me. Through my contacts, I selected 2 or 3 art stories and sent it to Ladies Special Magazine and Kalaimagal, a couple of magazines. Last Diwali morning, I got a call from this lady, very excited. Mr. Rajan, my story has appeared. I didn't know it's appeared. I said, where? The Diwali Malala Ladies Special. And she said, okay, very good, congratulations. She gave me all the blessings. I said, I need all the blessings. Within a month,
90-year-old lady.
90-year-old lady. Within a month, it appeared in Kalaimagal also. She got very excited. And she said, all the other stories also appear in other magazines. I said, sorry, I can't guarantee you that. But she was at 91, she was going to America, fit as a fiddle, to look after the delivery of her granddaughter. Granddaughter was like pregnant, she's going to deliver. I said, you are going there, continue to write, when you come back, give me the stories, we published the book, self-published book. She came back, she gave me the thing, and Lady Special Magazine is going to publish the book. I got to know 25th October is her birthday. We are trying our best to give her a surprise by bringing out that book before that date.
Wonderful. So you're keeping the memory of Prabha alive and encouraging other people.
Absolutely.
to
I
come
want
out
to
of
create
it.
more Prabha Rajans in this world. If Prabha could do after 38, 40 what she did, I'm sure a whole lot of ladies who can do that.
Yeah, why not?
And how old is this foundation now? How many years? 4
I
years?
started in 2013.
13, 6 years.
6 years, yeah.
So here we are. Instead of mourning somebody, celebrate their life.
Yeah.
That's one takeaway. And the second is the context of the first letter that Prabha gave Rajan comes into play here. Many people are feeling suppressed. Prabha expressed that feeling. And that changed Prabha's life. And Rajan's foundation for Prabha to celebrate her memory is doing everything possible to help people like Prabha was find the limelight. Right? Would that be a good summary?
Absolutely.
Okay. So here we are. I'm looking at the time, and need to be tight on this. So the last couple of questions.
All yours.
It's okay if you ask one and I'll ask one for the last segment. So,
Naren, I had this question for you about your idea of happiness. Do you think it has changed from what it was to what it is now? I'm asking you this specifically because this is happiness conversations, and so I'm a little curious as to how you have transitioned.
we'll keep it sharp.
Okay, couple of things.
Okay.
Firstly, I have always believed that happiness is an outcome and the pursuit of happiness is a source of unhappiness.
Very well said.
So-
Pursuit itself is, ensuring that you'll be unhappy.
So to me, somehow the notion that, I have to work towards it, I have to strive for happiness is not something that's ever sat with me very well. Maybe I'm a morose guy by nature and it doesn't come upon me very easily, very quickly, very often. But the fact of the matter is that I can talk about the moments when I've felt good. I can talk about those micro interactions when I've really come alive and felt extremely nourished, happy, joyous. But if I had to look at, something that I've pursued because I thought at the end of the road there is going to be happiness for me, I think that thought has never crossed my mind.
So that's the way you see it.
So amazing, because we often talk about it, Avis and we've always discussed that happiness is not about things that you possess or experiences that you go through. It's about being happy with what you've been given by life, because there's something, that you cannot change about it.
Correct.
And acceptance is the best form of happiness. And like you said, pursuit is something that, will guarantee that you do not have happiness. So in fact, I have everything against the title of that movie, Pursuit of Happiness. I think they did great disservice to the world of happiness with that. Yeah,
I see it essentially as a transient state.
Right.
Which is another way of saying it has potential to be a permanent state.
Right.
And somewhere in between these two, we live our lives and we die.
Interesting. Rajan, perhaps the same question to you. Your idea of happiness?
My idea of happiness is to make other people happy. When I see other people happy, I feel very happy. In fact, throughout my life, I have believed in helping others. Now today it's become a mission in my life. As I said, after Prabha passed away, very often this question comes to my mind. Why am I living? I have fulfilled all my obligations. The children are all married. I got 5 grandchildren. They all settled down. Prabha is also gone. What am I doing? I said, obviously God has left me behind to perform some role. And the role is use your talent, your resources, your contacts to help others. So anybody who comes to me for any help, I never say no. I say I'll try. Invariably, on telephone call to somebody, thanks to the goodwill that one has generated over a period of time, I always say my bank of goodwill is always overflowing. My bank balance may not be much, it's enough adequate to look after me. The bank of goodwill is certainly overflowing. It always helps me. So today, my mission in life is to make at least one person happy every day. It could be anything, just a telephone call to some old person, or just call on somebody, who is sick, who is not getting any visitors, or simple thing like, you engage in auto follow. He asks you for some money, legitimately, you give him 10 rupees more and look at the happiness on his face. Or the maid servant, without an expectation, do something to her. Little acts, all these things make people happy, and when you see them happy, I feel happy. And there's the greatest joy in giving of your time, not necessarily money. Your time is precious, we can share with people, you can give me happiness in other people's lives.
Wonderful. The big question then is, many people may ask, so how can I be happy when I have a problem? How can I be happy when I have, a conflicting situation, which is a very unhappy situation, when there is sadness? And so, does Naren's view apply there, or does Rajan's view apply there? The last thing on my mind would be to go and be useful to somebody else, to be happy, make somebody else happy. So this is where we need to pause and reflect on it. Happiness is available to all of us 24/7. It's a personal choice. It's a decision you have to make to be happy despite the circumstances, which is why we spell happiness with a Y, because it depends on you, the individual. So if you choose to fight the situation, postpone happiness, and say, "Idella seriyaitu naalaikku naan nalla irukka porenaka," that's your choice. If you say, "Idella irundum, the prachanayella irundum, naan non-worrying, non-frustrated, non-suffering ah irukka kattukka poren," ingla madiri கத்துண்டு பிரச்சனைகளுக்கு நடுவுல முழுகிண்டு இந்த மாதிரி ஒரு கான்வர்சேஷன் நடத்துறதுக்கு வெளியே வந்து செஞ்சுட்டு இருக்கோம் அப்படிங்கிற மாதிரி இருக்க போறேன்னா that's your choice. I think it's ultimately a personal choice. So, but the key is, if you postpone happiness thinking there is a better day waiting for you, I think from your own life experiences and from these two conversations, it may be pretty evident that it's not a very intelligent thing to do. And we're all not fools, because life is a limited period of it. Omar Khayyam, the Persian poet, 11th century Persian poet, Omar Khayyam. I'm looking at Ramesh because he's wondering whether Rumi is coming today, but it's Omar Khayyam. So Omar Khayyam, I remember, said, "The wine of life is oozing drop by drop." The wine of life is oozing drop by drop. Actually, the longer poem is that whether you are here or whether you're there, wherever you are in the world, the wine of life is oozing drop by drop. The leaves of life are falling one by one. So life is very transient. And if you think it's going to last forever and you can be happy at a later date, rethink that idea.
You have to drink today.
You have to live today. You have to celebrate the moment, seize the moment. So I would say essentially what I picked up from both Rajan and Naren and their journeys, and with Naren and with Rajan, because Rajan and I have done another conversation for a forthcoming book where there is a chapter on Rajan and his idea of happiness. And his simple idea of happiness is, don't ever say "ayyo" in life. That's his big idea of happiness. Okay? So for both Rajan and Naren, we've done our conversations before, but again today was very fresh, had its own beautiful charm to it. I would say what I'm taking away is that life is all about things, people, relationships, projects, opportunities, money, health, and even memories being taken away with you. We are hearing Alzheimer's a lot, right? Even memories being taken away from you. Which means life is all about accepting new normals gracefully. Which means essentially life is all about finding meaning and happiness in what is. எது இருக்கோ அதை இப்போ அனுபவிச்சு சந்தோஷமா இருக்கிறது தான் வாழ்க்கை. That's what I'm picking up from both these gentlemen and their very soulful journeys. Thank you so much for being here, both of you. I'd like to thank all of you for being here. I'd like to make 4 announcements before we call it a wrap for the evening. Announcement number 1 is that the Tamil translation of my book, Fall Like a Rose Petal, the Tamil translation is launching on the 2nd of October at the Curio Play event venue in Arvarpet. October 2nd, entry is free. Please come there. The time is 6 p.m. Leave your name and details here with us in case you want us to send you an invite. But entry is free. Madhusudanan Kalai Chelvan, the seeker and heritage lover, is in conversation with me. For a change, somebody will be speaking to me and not me to somebody else. The second announcement is that we are starting a new series called Happiness Reboot, which is exploring lessons on life, happiness, and leadership for workplaces. This is again a live, reflective, non-commercial series starting on the 16th of October at Curio Play. It's supported by a well-wisher, and that's Curio Play in Alwarpet, Ananda Road. Time is 7 p.m. on 16th October, Wednesday. The third announcement is that the next edition of Bliss Catchers is on 19th October, on the third Saturday of October, and not on the last Saturday of October, because the last Saturday is Diwali. So we have preponed for this one time Bliss Catchers to happen on 19th October. Madhusudanan Kalaichalvan, very interestingly, he was booked last year for this event. He finally, I'll be in conversation with him. He'll be our 100th guest. And we have another guest, an actor, Karthik Anantharaman, who will be in that edition. And the fourth announcement is that the next edition of Happiness Conversations is on 30th November, the last Saturday of November, 7 p.m. here at Odyssey. We have two wonderful guests, Dr. Shanti Priya, who is an ophthalmologist and dealing with an early onset of Parkinson's. How does she cope? And a very young lady, Ranjini Ramakrishnan, who's dealing with vitiligo, and how does she cope? What do you do when a lifelong health situation comes to take over your life? That's the exploration on 30th November, 7 p.m. So please keep joining us. If you would like to receive our invitations, you need to leave your name and number with us, and we will be in touch with you. You may Google happynesswalas, HAPPYNESSWALAS, and you'll find more information on us and ways to reach us. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good evening. Celebrate.